Welcome to another edition of the Orange Bloods Texas Longhorns football channel. I'm Geoff Ketchum, not joined by Anwar today. He's off doing stuff in, South Texas. I'm here to talk breaking news. The Longhorns officially put Hudson Card into the starting quarterback position. That reported earlier today on Saturday. Before we get too deep into this, hit that like button for me, subscribe to the channel. You get me today talking about Hudson Card and the Longhorn offense and kind of where this team is. Casey Thompson, there's a lot to talk about with regards to the implication of today's news, which again, Hudson Card officially the starting quarterback at Texas. Let's just start with Card for a second. I don't want to say that this has been a foregone conclusion, but I kind of think it has been at least a mini bit of a foregone conclusion. And for me, this isn't really about Casey Thompson. It has a lot more to do with what I think Hudson Card is. And for really, look, I've been driving the train as the self-proclaimed president of the Hudson Card fan club. It's not because we're friends. It's not because I know his family. It's because from a talent standpoint, I think he's the most talented quarterback that Texas has recruited from a physical standpoint. I think he's the most talented quarterback that Texas has landed since Vince Young back in 2002. And obviously Vince plays through 2005. It's been a long time. Garrett Gilbert probably about it. He would have been into that category, but I actually think Hudson Card has way better arm talent than Garrett Gilbert did, especially when you consider that Gilbert was coming off of the torn labrum injury as a junior that I never felt like he really let heal going into his senior year. And I just never felt like he was completely the same. We don't need to relitigate that. But at the end of the day, I think that Hudson Card's talent is significant. Tom Herman's staff loved Hudson Card. I think the expectations, if Tom Herman had remained the coach, I think Hudson Card would have been the starting quarterback. And I wonder if the Longhorns would have went out and recruited I think Casey Thompson might have left early had Tom Herman stuck around. Steve Sarkisian becomes a new head coach, and it's a new lease on life, I think, for the quarterback discussion as a whole. To Casey Thompson's credit, he's been really good in camp. I've said before on this very channel that I don't know how significant the difference is between both guys as players and what it means. I don't know that the Longhorns become a 10-2 football team today. I kind of feel like we're talking about an 8-4, 9-3 team, regardless of who plays quarterback. But I think Hudson Card's going to have a fantastic season. I think by the end of the season, we could be talking about a guy that is going to be the number 2 quarterback in the Big 12. It's hard for me to think that he's going to be better than Spencer Rattler this year. I have questions about how good I think Brock Purdy is. So I think the upside for both of them could be that. I think Hudson Card probably ends up being an honorable mention, all Big 12 type of a player this year. I think it's his show. I think if you look at what Steve Sarkisian has told us about his experience in the past, he's not afraid to go with youth. And people are like, oh, you can't play this season based on what you think will happen next season. This is not life or death for Texas in 2021. This is the first step of the Steve Sarkisian era. And yeah, planning for the future is kind of part of the deal. I mean, back in 2003, when Texas puts Vince Young into the starting lineup over Chance Mock, he wasn't better than Chance as a passing quarterback at that point, but you have to take your lumps because the idea is that that's the guy that can take Texas potentially to a Big 12 championship and beyond. I think Hudson Card, that's his upside. And I think that from the moment that he started taking over quarterback reps with the first team, so, the way this works with the quarterbacks, it's like a line. First team guy takes the first reps in everything. He works with the first team. He basically dominates the front end reps with the best players. And then the second guy goes after that and gets to work usually with the second team guys, and everybody kind of goes in order. And by the time you get to the walk-ons, they're usually throwing the ball to walk-ons. For most of all of the spring, so if we go back to the spring, Casey Thompson took basically all of the reps with the ones. They treated Casey Thompson in the spring like a starting quarterback to a certain extent. Card would have gotten some reps with the ones, but Thompson took the overwhelming majority of the reps with the ones. In the spring game, Thompson took all of the reps with the first team offense. So they gave him an opportunity, I think. I think they want Casey Thompson, obviously, to stick around. I think when you go back to Thursday and you say, what was that whole thing about? 2 days ago, Steve Sarkisian held a press conference where he kind of scoffed at the idea that there was a quarterback that was leading the way and that it was premature to say that anybody had a, and then 2 days later, Hudson Card's the quarterback. He just goes, it's another lesson. It's another reminder. These coaches go out of their way more times than not to tell us anything in a press conference. Sometimes they do. More times than not, they've got their own agenda that they're working. And you wondered what exactly happened on Thursday, because after 10 consecutive days of practice, the Longhorns moved Casey Thompson back into the first team and gave him the overwhelming majority of the reps with the one that day. And he did pretty good. And then on Friday, back to Card. And as I record this scrimmage today, Card will be the first team quarterback. It's clear there's some real sensitivity about this as it relates to Thompson. And our sourcing behind the scenes has told us consistently, I would say with sources with direct knowledge on the thinking of the Thompson camp, if you will, is that if he didn't win the starting quarterback job, and that was reiterated this week to us, that the possibility of him transferring is an absolute definite possibility. I don't think it makes sense. I know why you would transfer. Bitterness more than anything else. You didn't win the job, and get the hell out of Dodge. It's time to start. Casey Thompson thinks of himself as an NFL quarterback. And I think that there's going to be an itch for him to figure out where his next home is going to be and to be able to mentally start thinking about that. But he doesn't preserve a year of football by sitting out this season. So he's used his redshirt year before. He doesn't get another one. And even when you take into consideration that last year doesn't count for him, he's a guy that has, I guess, 3 seasons of eligibility left, but that's down to 2 next year, no matter what. To me, if you're Casey Thompson, you have to stick around. You do. No matter what the influences behind the scenes might be telling him, it makes more sense to stay at Texas and play it out and see what happens. Look, I think Hudson Card is going to be the next great quarterback at Texas. I'm not going to back off of that now today, but things happen. I mean, I talk about Garrett Gilbert. One of the things that happened to him, I think that labrum injury lingered. He ends up having shoulder surgery at the end of his sophomore, I guess in the middle of his sophomore season at Texas, that basically ended his career. David Ash, concussions. The 2 best quarterbacks that the Longhorns have had in the post Mac Brown or post 2009 national championship run season, both guys had careers that were directly impacted by injuries. So while I think that Hudson Card, if he stays healthy, has a chance to be a fan, like the best quarterback that Texas has had since Colt McCoy. I think he's going to be better than Sam Ehlinger, but he could get hurt. And as a young quarterback, he could struggle. I think he's going to play good next week against Louisiana. But if he doesn't, what does it feel like inside the stadium? What does it feel like inside of DKR if the Longhorns have 10 points on offense on Saturday at halftime and there's murmurs? And you know how the crowd gets at DKR? We've seen it so many times. Rabble, rabble, rabble. And you can feel that tension start to build up, and how long in a game they have to win. Would you go with subpar quarterback play? What you think back to Chance Mock in 2003 when he loses his job, he still gets that Texas Tech game where he gets to come in and have a moment And kind of that's the thing that has made him a bit of a, I don't want to say Longhorn legend. That's a bit much, right? But I mean, he's got like a, I don't know, what do you call someone who has like an all-time great moment that 20 years later people will still recognize and talk about? I mean, it's notorious. I don't know. He's like the soccer, he's like the Divock Origi of Liverpool, a couple of big goals in a big game, and like you don't ever have to pay for a meal again. If I'm Thompson, I stick around, but I'm not Thompson, and I don't know what Thompson is going to do. And I think it's clear that I think Steve Sarkisian is doing everything he can to entice Casey Thompson into sticking around. You know, we even heard from sources today that Casey Thompson was going to play in the opener, that Hudson Card could start, but they might rotate series. They might, who knows how it may go, but our sources telling us today, they think Casey Thompson is going to play in the opener should he stick around. Clearly, Sark put him into the starting quarterback position on Thursday. And I think we can look at that now and look, I'm not putting words into Steve Sarkisian's mouth. Who could do that, right? But we can use our brains. We can use our brains. For the last 12 days, 11 of those days had Hudson Card in the starting quarterback position. Only one of them on Thursday had Casey Thompson. And oh, by the way, it just happened to be the practice leading into a press conference where Steve Sarkisian wanted to push back against the idea that he had a starting quarterback. It's weird now that it's 2 days later. I mean, we don't want to put words into Sarkisian's mouth. It's just obvious. That was about keeping Casey Thompson. And that happened, I think, is insight into how seriously they're taking the possibility that he could transfer. Because if you weren't worried about that at all, well, then you would just let Hudson Card keep on taking reps with the first team offense on, and maybe you make the decision earlier. I don't know how the Casey Thompson thing is going to go. I mean, what we have seen, and there seems to have, look, I think there's some skepticism in the minds of some Longhorn fans about how good Hudson Card is because they saw Casey Thompson in the bowl game. And I'm a big Casey Thompson fan. Like, don't confuse me being the president of the Hudson Card fan club with that somehow being an anti-position against Casey Thompson. If we're being completely honest, like, can somebody get this team above 8-4, 9-3? Like, because business will be better when Texas wins. So I don't care who plays quarterback. Like, let Charles Wright play quarterback if it gets them to 10 wins. But we're now in this situation where Hudson Card takes over. And it's, I think, the beginning of a new era for Longhorn football. And to finish the point that I was making before I just allowed myself to get sidetracked for a second, Casey Thompson's good. I mean, Casey Thompson, I think, could quarterback this team to 9-3, maybe in his sleep. I mean, he's a good player. It speaks to how good the Texas coaches think Hudson Card is, that they're taking this risk. Because Hudson Card's not going to transfer if he loses the job. He's in the business school. He's from Austin. I think he's in a good place mentally. Like, he's not tripping. He won the job. I think he fairly won the job. He's been better than Casey Thompson in camp based on the sources that we've talked to. I think that for them to make this call when I think a lot of coaches probably would have gone with Casey Thompson. It keeps him. But I don't think they want anything to get in the way of this Hudson Card experience. I think most quarterback coaches at the collegiate level spend their entire careers dreaming of working with a guy with as much natural raw talent as Hudson Card. I think Tom Herman certainly felt that way. I don't know if we would say that about Steve Sarkisian. He's worked with some good dudes before, to say the least. But Hudson Card, talent-wise, is right there. And it says a lot about how good they think he is now and what they think about the long-term future of this program with him in control of the offense. I think they obviously think quite a bit of him. And so this decision says and speaks a lot of things. Where we go from here, I think that part of what the next piece of the conversation is what does Saturday look like? I mean, A, is Casey Thompson going to be there? But B, we're hearing that they would play both quarterbacks is counterproductive. That does undermine your starter to an extent. And I would say that a Casey Thompson won the job as well. If you've got a starting quarterback, you need to let that guy be the starter. You're undermining him immediately with this idea that what are you going to alternate series? You're going to go every other series. You're going to let him go a quarter, then you let Casey. No, you're not. No. And Steve Sarkisian doesn't have any, there's nothing in his resume that says he will alternate quarterbacks. So I know people are saying that. I think they're trying to keep Casey Thompson. Because I'll just say it now. I'll say it in advance. It's a mistake to rotate the quarterbacks if that's something that's on the table. And if Casey Thompson had won the starting quarterback job, he would deserve a chance to go out there and win the game. And don't let him get off to a hot start. And think about what happened to Hudson Card in the spring game. He had his best moment when he took the team down the field, scores a touchdown. The touchdown throw was that thing of beauty that should have been ESPN's top play of the day, where he fits it into a window that when he throws the ball, the receiver hasn't made his break yet, and the DB never even had a chance to turn his head. The ball was just bam right there in the breadbasket. He does that, and then Sark benched him and brought in the walk-ons. No, you're not going to do that in a game. It's not going to be, hey, the team went 80 yards down the field. Hudson Card threw an amazing touchdown pass. Let's put the backup in. It's just not something that I would anticipate. I think what's interesting is this. I don't think Casey Thompson and his dad feel like this is the first time they've been to the circus. I feel like they've seen the strings, they've seen the shows, and I think it's a situation that we'll have to keep an eye on. There's no other way to look at it. And that Texas has gone, I think, to the lengths that they have to keep Thompson. Like, they're telling him as much as they can, stay dialed in, stay with us, keep your head in the game. There's an opportunity there for you. Is there, though? I don't know. I mean, I think he would get an opportunity before this season is over, but I just don't know that Steve Sarkisian is going to be tinkering with the starting quarterback job. I don't know that it's going to be Hudson Card's show. And I think only a wretched start in the opener would potentially change. I will be shocked. Seriously, I will be shocked if they're rotating the series in the opener against a ranked team. That's not how you go about beating a ranked team. The other team's got a senior six-year quarterback who's like started a million games, and you're alternating. It just doesn't make sense. So look, we will have our overreaction show on Monday. Anwar will be back from South Texas. I don't know if he will have shot anything, because isn't that what you do when you go to South Texas? You go to a ranch, you shoot something. I don't know. I've really never spent a lot of time in Ganado. I'm not sure where he even is. Someone sent me an email today, though, that said they drove through it today. We'll be back for the Monday Overreaction show right here on the Orange Bloods Texas football channel. We'll have videos all weekend long from Serenity Douglas talking to Texas players through our NIL deals. Do us a solid if you like the videos, even if you hate me, because I get it. Some of you do. Even if you dislike me, like this video for everybody else, for Anwar, for Serenity, for, I wouldn't say Sukumel, but not him, because you guys don't like him any more than you like me. For a Texas win on Saturday, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hey, I'm curious, what do you think about today's news? Hudson Card, the starting quarterback at the University of Texas. Leave your comments in the comments section. We'll check them out. We'll talk to you on Monday. You guys be good to each other. Later.